Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our last live stream of the year. And so we hope that you guys have gotten a lot from the past few sessions that we've done, a lot of stuff for helping work on your project, and we have some great stuff to help wrap us up today and help you get contest ready. And so I'm going to go ahead and start us off and go into our first tip. And so our first one is using feedback to improve your project. So you might get feedback from your peers if you guys do any kind of review in class. You can always have your parents check out your project, get their opinion on it, other family members. If you have a school contest, you should have feedback from judges or other teachers and faculty that can help you work on your project. So there's lots of options to get some feedback and tips that can help you keep working on this project and make it even better, or prepare it if you are about to go into a contest. And so our first kind of common feedback that we'll see is that your thesis could be a little bit stronger. So if you get some feedback like this, then some things to consider are, is there enough detail for an unfamiliar reader or viewer to understand your claim? And so that is really, really important, because by this point in the project, you have been focused in on your topic for possibly weeks, months. If you knew you were going into History Day and you're super excited, you might have even started thinking about it last school year to be really, really ready for the project. So you are going to be that expert on your topic, but not everybody reading about your project or viewing it is going to know as much as you do. So you really want to make sure that everything is clear to them. Another really good thing to look for is explanations and definitions. So make sure if there's any kind of terminology that is maybe unique to your topic, then make sure you explain what that is. The next couple tips is, do you show your topic's significance in history? And so that, especially if you've looked at any of our thesis writing tips, you'll see that the two main parts of your thesis is arguing that significance, as well as that next point there, a clear connection to the theme. So you want to show why your topic had a big impact on history, how it's important, as well as how it was a frontier in history. So you really want to make sure that's clear in your thesis statement. So since that's one of those first things that a viewer or reader is going to see. The next feedback you might get is needing broader research or more primary sources. And so you might have kind of had a few sources that were due from your teacher, but it's always good to kind of go past that, look for more sources. There's always going to be a little bit more out there that could maybe add a really unique perspective to your topic. And so look at your primary sources. What kind of sources do you have? You might have a lot of pictures, especially if you're using a more visual format like an exhibit or a documentary. But you want to make sure that you still have a lot of text documents to get things like quotes and that really important primary perspective information on your topic. So there's lots of different text documents. There's things like letters, manuscripts, magazines, newspapers, diaries, journals, all different kind of messages, recordings of things, transcriptions of maybe interviews and oral histories. There's a lot of different sources to look at. So always just kind of check out some of those other formats and maybe dive into a few of those. Another tip is to expand your search, kind of look in a few new places. And so have you looked for those reliable institutions, places like archives, libraries, universities, and museums? A really great place to start is on NHD's website and on our website. We have really great thorough lists of all different reliable places to find sources for your project. So if you're getting some feedback that you need a little bit more detail, a few more examples, then check out some of those sites and maybe go on a few that you didn't look at in your initial research and see if you have any luck finding new sources. And we have a couple more tips for feedback. Needs proper image or video credits. So this is really, really important for a research project, is making sure that you properly give credit to who or where you got your resources. And so for exhibits and websites, you're going to need the title, year, and the institution or photographer under every visual source. So that has to do with kind of like the caption for your picture that you have either in your exhibit or website. For a documentary, at the end credits, at the very end of your documentary, you're going to need the institution where you found it and that owns that image. So that could be like PBS, Discovery, History Channel, the Library of Congress, National Archives, wherever you got that video clip, you just need to put that name right at the end. And then a paper, that is the one that you have the really, really in-depth stuff of having in-text citations in MLA or Chicago, along with that bibliography that everybody creates for their project. So you're going to need to do a slightly more thorough and in-depth description of those sources in those footnotes of your project. Another really important tip is to think about how you're using quotes. Sometimes you might not have enough quotes. Sometimes you can have too many. You might have too many quotes, especially if you quoted a lot from secondary sources. And so we don't usually recommend doing this because you are the storyteller. And so if you think about that key difference between those primary sources and those secondary sources, is that the secondary sources usually include primary. There's some analysis going on, just like you are doing with your project. So instead of quoting a primary source, if you quote a secondary, it's like you're just quoting someone else's project. So you don't really want to quote those too much unless it's a really, really good, impactful quote. For example, showing maybe the impact of your topic, that legacy, but you don't want to overload with quotes from those sources. And don't include quotes just to get around the word limit. And so this is a big one, especially for exhibits and things like that. Well-used quotes can be really helpful because especially with exhibits, you have a really small word count. But don't rely too heavily on them because if you don't include your own words, then you're not really going to have kind of a narrative or a story being told. It could end up being a little disconnected and not making sense to the viewer. And so now I'm going to pause real quick and show you guys one great resource for those citation tips as well as writing. And so you guys have definitely probably seen this website, especially if you viewed any of our previous videos. But real quick, to give you some extra resources for some of those tips, I wanted to highlight the student resource page on our website, mdhumanities.org. So we have lots of different places that you can find sources. So if you need a few more sources, that's a great place to start, as well as a lot of tips for citations. So if you need to know how to cite your sources, that's maybe something that you need to improve. Maybe you got feedback that your annotations are not clear enough, then this is a really great place to check out. And then another tip that I wanted to give, that this is especially helpful if you're doing a paper or something that's really text heavy, is to reverse outline. And so this is another site you might have run into, and we actually have this one linked right at the top of our citation page, but this is Purdue OWL, or Online Writing Lab. And so if you just Google Purdue OWL reverse outlining, you can get to this page. And the really great thing is on the side here are all different tips for any stage of the writing process. So they also have a lot of great tips for revising your paper, proofreading it, all of those different things, working with feedback. So those are all really great places to check out. But this one specific thing I wanted to highlight can really help, especially with kind of working on your thesis and your argument, is to go through your project. And rather than going word by word and doing a really detailed review, you just look at each section and think of what is the main point or main idea you're arguing in that paragraph. And you go through and note that, as well as how is it connecting back to that main argument and kind of helping move it along. So you sort of want to see the project as kind of like a flow chart or a story that's starting at the beginning and going to the end. And look at sort of the overall ideas. Are they well supported? Rather than just going word by word for those little grammar things, kind of looking at your project with this lens can be a really great way to find those issues with clarity and the description in your project. So I recommend checking that out and trying a few of these steps. to work on revising your project. And so now I'm going to pause real quick to see if we have any questions. And so we have a Google form in the description below that you guys can submit questions on if you have anything specific that you need to know. So I'll just wait a moment to see if we have any come in. Okay, so we have, how do I know what feedback to follow if I get contradicting advice? So that can definitely be challenging because every single person is going to have a different opinion. So you can end up with some conflicting advice there. So one thing I would recommend is look at that specific advice and really thoroughly look at kind of where it connects into the project. So if it's maybe about a specific paragraph, a certain part of your project, then really just sit with it, look at it, read through it, and maybe consider both changes and see how it would be different with each change. And so if you kind of consider that, you might be able to just decide for yourself which one that you want to go with, which you think would better improve your project. Another tip could be, if you're able to, discuss it with the two people that gave you feedback. If it's maybe like a faculty member, your teacher, a family member, get a little bit more on why they think that that's the right option. And then my other advice would be, if you're really, really stuck on it, would be go talk to maybe your media specialist or librarian or your teacher if they weren't the ones that gave the feedback, to get some advice from them on maybe how to handle that feedback. They might have a resource that might give you instructions on that particular part of your project, especially if it's something more grammatical, citation, your bibliography. Then they might be able to kind of direct you to a good resource to look at those different pieces of advice and kind of compare them against them. Okay, so hopefully that helped that viewer. And I see we have no more questions at this time. So we're going to dive into tip 2. So the next step is you're looking at your project just kind of as a whole. And a really great thing to do in between all those contests is work on your project. So the project you submit at the school level at the end of your kind of year of working on it, or the end of the quarter or something, that is not the only project you're stuck with. You are allowed to change your project. You can't completely just change your topic or things like that, but you can keep researching. You can find new resources, maybe switch out a quote that you used, add a new photograph, newspapers, things like that. Kind of rearrange your ideas to make it more clear. And so that is where taking in that feedback is really helpful. And so here we have one that we're going to see at a few different stages for the same project. And so this is at the school contest. So that's that first level, the project they finished with their teacher in their classroom. And now this is how they changed it for the state contest. And so they made the project a little bit bigger. They kind of reworked their design. I think that one thing that looks really good is making the background all that one color and making the two different colors a little more subtle. So it makes it kind of really bold and stands out. Everything is really clear and easy to see. Everything is a little bit more even and arranged really nice and cleanly. So just little changes like that, just rearranging things in your exhibit, maybe moving text around on your website, can be a really great way to just do a little improvement that can maybe have a big impact. And if you happen to move on to even the national contest, that's another step that you can change your project. And so now you can see it got even bigger, even more formal and fancy looking. This looks more like kind of an exhibit you would see in a museum. They have a nice header for the title. They even have, as you can see, some little objects in front of the project so that you can look at some more specific examples. So this is just little ways that you can work on your project to improve it. And so I have some particular examples to give you ideas of how to do this. And the first is, again, under that Students tab on our website, is to check out the sample projects. And so this can be a really great way to get inspiration for your specific project. We have actual projects from students in all different formats from tons of different years of this project. And so these can be really great to get some ideas of how to maybe improve, because all of these sample projects are students that were at Maryland History Day. that were at the state contest and won and moved on to nationals. So these are really, really good examples of History Day projects that were successful. So they can be a really great way to learn a little bit more about the projects, the formats, get some more examples. National History Day is also a great place to check out. They have project examples of all different students for the past few years that were at the national contest. And another really good step here is also with the categories. So checking out each category, just going back to look at those tips for specific categories and formats, and checking out those checklists and the eval sheets. So again, they are just a really great place to just kind of check off that you've got all those details, everything is really clear, you've got everything included, and that you've got a really solid project that you're moving along with. And another really, really great step, again, under that for students on our website, is if you're going from a school contest to the district contest, then a really great step is to do project review. Or going from district to the state contest, that's primarily this timing that it'll line up with. But on here, opening in March, you will be able to submit your project for feedback. And so the kind of people that will be reviewing these projects are similar to the people that would be judges. A lot of them are librarians, there may be professors, other teachers that are somewhere in the humanities and history field. So it's people that like these kinds of topics and projects. And so you can submit your project to be reviewed, and then it will be closing at the end of March and return to you in time to submit your project for the state contest. So this is a really, really great resource to get some more feedback, to find those changes you can make to keep improving your project. And so now I'm going to pause again to see if we have any questions. And then I wanted to reiterate real quick is again, the project feedback lines up for district contest to state. I spoke a little bit earlier, but so if you end up moving on to the state contest, that's a really great resource to take advantage of. Okay, so we have a question about citations for documentaries. Is when we put our citations into the end of the video, is it okay to add only the main videos we use, or should we add in all images and videos? I do have all the sources in my bibliography. So that I would recommend. One really great resource is the rule book to make sure that you have all of those things exactly correct. But I would definitely recommend is having the place you got your sources from for any different source. So if you have a picture that came from somewhere else than kind of a main video clip you used, then you're going to want to list that organization in there. So you definitely want to make sure every individual source is in your bibliography, but for those kind of simple citations in the credits, you just want to make sure that at least every organization is listed, so that you have all of the different places you got your sources, but it doesn't need to be that really in-depth with hyperlinks, date accessed, all of that. Just the organization itself is typically the way that that works. And again, a really great place to double check is with the rule book. Is not the link I meant to click. Yes, if you go to the NHD website, you can get all of those different resources. And so we have the rule book. So the rule book says that your end credits should be credits for moving footage, interviews, music, and images, and not the full entry in your bibliography. So that shorter version that you use. And then all sources, including ones not featured in the documentary, should be referenced in the bibliography. So that would be things like just kind of the different details that you use to move the story along, but you maybe put into your own words, but the source you got them from, you would need those in your bibliography. So again, you want all of your moving footage, so any video clips, interviews, music, and images. That is where you need to have those credits for. And so we can actually check this out right here so you can get the page for it as well. So that'll be 31 in the rule book. Is a great place to go check back to. So we have all of that information about how to credit sources, and they have more specifics about the annotated bibliography page that can give you all those specific details. So definitely for all of those different feedback elements you get, things that you want to improve, definitely go check out the rulebook, because that can be a great place to make sure that everything is lining up with how it should, that you're meeting all of those requirements. And then another good tip as well is to look at those specific project categories. So under 5, you'll have all of the different general rules for the categories. So that's what everyone has to meet. And then the 6th chapter of the rulebook is those specific rules for each format. So the main elements for your paper, of course, you have to have your original creations, your own research, and then all of those specific little details that you need to check off. Your word limit, the things that you include, words that are your own, words that don't count and do count towards your limit, how to do all of your different citations, the way that your paper needs to be formatted to be accepted. And then they usually have some examples as well to help you make sure that you're getting everything right. So that is a really, really great place to check out. And so again, that starts right on page 22 of the rulebook. And that PDF is where you'll get the start of the category specific rules. And so I'm going to go back to the presentation, wait a moment to see if we have any other questions. Okay, so we are all good. So we're going to move on to our final main tip that we have for getting contest ready, and that is to prepare for the interview. So this is a really big component of the contest, is having the judge interviews when presenting your project. And so the main thing to think about with the interview is that it's not really going to be something to try and change the judge's opinion of your project. You're not trying to convince them anything specific. It's just to give them more information, give them a little background on how you worked on it, your research process, and just kind of complete the view of the project. But your project should be able to stand alone. So even if you weren't there, they still can understand the full project. So you're not going to be doing things like adding to your argument, explaining your thesis. It would just be kind of providing some background on your side of the project, your process, your work, what you enjoyed, what you didn't, not the actual content or argument. And so, again, the really big point is that that will show the judges that you did the work, that you know your research, you're the expert on the topic, and that you feel really confident about your project. They want to know that you know what you're talking about. And so this is another really great thing to keep in mind for groups, is make sure that all of you are prepared for this interview. You really want to make sure that you all can explain what you were doing so that the judges don't think that maybe only one person contributed. So it's really good to make sure that you guys all know how you worked on it, that you're prepared to talk about all of the amazing research and work you put into this project. And we have some example questions to give you an idea. So you might be asked, what was your favorite or most useful primary source? So what were you kind of the most happy about finding? What do you think contributed the most? How and where did you do your research? So if you maybe went to places in person, you looked at certain archives, talk about all of those different places. Did primary sources help you learn something you didn't know before? So did your primary sources help you discover new things about your topic? Did any of them really kind of change your perspective? Did your thesis change since you started the project? And so that can be really great because it shows that you were kind of open to those new ideas. You might have had an idea about your topic. And for example, that primary source that taught you something new, it might have changed your argument. And then another really great thing to be prepared for is, what was the most challenging part of your History Day experience? So being prepared to talk about what kind of was really hard for you. Where did you maybe struggle a little bit? And how did you get through that? How did you work on it? Are really great things to consider. And so now I'm going to pause again to see if we have any questions. And then I have a few more resource pages that I'll highlight. Okay, so you have what if you don't know the answer to a judge's question? So that would be something that it definitely can be uncomfortable when that happens, but I would definitely recommend is just be honest with them. Talk about maybe some things that you learned that could be connected to it or relate to it. But it is okay to just be honest that you maybe don't have a good explanation to that at the moment. Because I know that can be something that can be really scary, but even once you're, a professional, you're working a job, sometimes you might have to say, I'm not sure right now, but I can get back to you on that you might have people contact you. I sometimes have to do that when I'm in outreach talking to students like you guys. I sometimes have to go double check things before I can give the students their answer because I want to make sure that I give them the right info. So definitely don't be too worried about that. Also, the questions should be pretty simple. They should be a little bit more open-ended. So it's not too likely that that will happen because they're more kind of opinion questions about just your experience, what you were working on. It's not going to be like, what year did this exact thing happen, or all those little fact questions. It'll be more about your experience, kind of like your process paper. So think about what you did for your process paper. That's the kind of information judges will likely be asking you. And then another thing that I want to highlight too, just to help kind of calm anybody who's maybe a bit anxious about that, is they're not going to be grilling you. It's not going to be like a test or a quiz. They're not going to be rapid firing questions. It's going to be pretty calm and relaxed. So just take your time, answer the questions. They just want to learn more about you and your project and the work that you did. So definitely you don't need to freak out about it. I am also not really big on public speaking and things like that. So as a student, I definitely wouldn't have really liked the judging either. But definitely just kind of take a breather and you guys are going to do great. Okay, so we don't have any other questions right now. So I'm going to just highlight a few more resources. So again, on our website, we have tons of different resources. So I'll give you a quick run through of just kind of all the different highlights that you'll want to focus on. So the way to get to this is mdhumanities.org, and then under programs, we have Maryland History Day. So anything you're going to need to know, I almost can guarantee 100% it'll probably be somewhere on this website, or worst case scenario, people who can tell you their information will also be on this website. And so we have contest information. So if you are moving on to the state contest, you can find that here. There is the student section that has all of those details I was previously highlighting, like resources for finding new sources to expand your research, those tips for citation and your bibliography, making sure that everything is correct. It also takes you to the National History Day bibliography guides that you can make sure you're doing everything to contest standards. We have quick links to any NHD resources you need, like the theme book, the rule book, project examples, bibliography page is there again. And another thing that I have on the last slide is just a little tip of subscribe to our YouTube. We have tons of really great resources. If you know that you might be doing History Day again next year, then if you subscribe, you'll be able to see when these videos like our student office hour are happening, as well as when we post any other things like common critiques of History Day projects. We have all different research videos and tips, annotations, lots of different resources that can help you out with refining or doing your project. And then that feedback and support, again, I wanted to highlight that. So if you're going from a district contest to the state competition, then starting on March 6th, you'll be able to submit your project to us and we will send that out to someone to review it. And so they will provide you feedback on your project. And so it is first come, first serve. So we only have so many people to review. So as we get the projects, we'll send them out. But we unfortunately can't guarantee that every single project will get reviewed. But the ones that do end up reviewed will be returned in time for you to upload your project for the state contest. And so then that will close on March 24th. So that is the last day that we will accept projects to be reviewed. And so that link, once you go to it on March 6th, it will be open for you to submit your project. So that is, again, a really great resource. Those sample projects can be a really great place to look for that tip 2 of maybe kind of working on your design, your format, and things like that. check out the sample projects, look at other students' work. Of course, don't copy anything exactly, that would be plagiarism, but just look for that inspiration, for ideas of maybe formats and layouts, ways to kind of work the colors you would like to into a color scheme that'll look nice. Just all of those different tips and ideas. This can be a really great place to check those out and get some inspiration and creativity. And then another one that I wanted to highlight that will be helpful, especially if you are going to be competing and moving along, is the About the Contest page. So here, right now, what will probably be most useful to a lot of you is the district competition page. And so once this loads, you'll be able to see that we have all of the different counties for district competitions listed. And when you click on any of them, it will show you when the district contest is. Some of them will have websites that you can go to, and it will have the person to contact for information or any questions. So as we kind of move into this district contest and you're competing there, this is a great place to get any info you need, or just double checking with your teacher. They will probably have that info as well. And then if you do move from a district to the state contest, then this is the place to go to get all of the information that you'll need about how to register, all of your deadlines. Any of the information you need will be right here on this website. And so that is most of the tips we have for you guys. Oh, we have one more question, is how to improve your process paper. So that is definitely one that it's not like you can just do more research or things like that, because it's not your argument, it's just how you worked on your project. So that I would definitely say that you'd want to just really sit and kind of think about all of the work that you did. Really look back and see if there's maybe more that you could talk about. If you could maybe kind of dive deeper into something that was really kind of impactful on you that you think might be interesting to the judges that are looking at the projects, kind of doing maybe a timeline or an outline of how you did your project can help you think through that. And always just look back at different drafts. If you were doing it in class and you maybe had assignments for all the different parts of the project, look back at those. Look back to see how you were maybe improving things, the different steps that you took to just kind of really get all of that process in your process paper. Okay. And so this was our last office hour of this year. So thank you guys for joining us. I know it is a Thursday evening. You're probably just all excited for it to be Friday tomorrow and for the weekend. So thank you for taking some time to join us and get a few more tips for wrapping up your project and getting it ready for the contests. Again, the YouTube channel, we have tons of different playlists with resources for students for all different steps of the project. Our emails are also on here. So I am Emmy Mihalkevich. My email's there if you have any specific questions. And then the coordinator for outreach, Leah, her info is also there. And then the end of it right there is our website. So mdhumanities.org. And so we can just hang out for a couple minutes, see if we have any other questions come in, see if anybody needs any more help. And if you end up having any questions later, or if you are watching this after the fact, of course, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions come up that you don't have right now, or that you are not joining us live. We are always happy to help. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So real quick before we wrap up, I'm going to just highlight a few other resources that I talked about earlier for anybody who maybe joined us a little later in the session. So again, we have our website that I just went through, all of those different pages with awesome information and resources. Another really great website is obviously the National History Day website. They are the ones with all of the main information. They are where everything comes from. So they have a wealth of resources that can help you with every part of the project. And so most of the info you need will be right under that For Students page. And when you click on that page, this is where you will end up. They have some different areas to explore. And so you can also get to the main resources here. And the ones you might need now are project categories. So just to review all of the different details and requirements for your specific project. There are also some tips and things like that to help you work through your project. So that can be great if you feel like you maybe need to fix something, revise something, is check out this different advice. The evaluation form is a really great place to kind of just check off all the different details to make sure you meet all of the different requirements for your project. And then another really great resource is they also specifically have checklists for the projects. So this again is just a really great place to make sure you meet every little requirement, all of those margins, the setup, the layout, your citations, every little part is covered and accounted for. So those are some great pages to check out, and they've got one for every single category. And again, they also have project examples. So how I mentioned checking these out to get some inspiration and some ideas for that more kind of creative aspect of how to put your project together. This is another really great place to, again, look at students' specific projects and see real examples. And then there are just some additional student resources covering all different parts of the project. There's also quick tips where there is just quick little videos and information about all the different parts of your project. So there's lots of awesome resources here, especially for those big things you'll be wrapping up, like your bibliography, writing your process paper, and other details like that. As well as the rulebook is a really, really big one as well. And so that one you can get to on the how-to page. So this covers kind of a broad overview of the contest, and the rule book is right there. So that'll give you the PDF. So that again is a wealth of knowledge on all the different parts of the project, every little requirement that you have. And again, the specific part of the rulebook you want to check out is those category rules. So that covers pretty much any question you might have about how to do something for your project, what's required of it, should be explained in this rulebook. So really great place to stop and check out. And then the last resource I wanted to go back and highlight is the Purdue Online Writing Lab. And so this, if you want a quick way to get back to it, if you go to our website on the students page, we do have under sources and citing, it is linked right here. So that's a good place to get back to it if you maybe forget the name or the website, but it's just owl.purdue.edu, gets you to this page. And so this is really great for anything. So not just this page I'm on to help you review and proofread your project, but anything about general writing tips, research and citation. They have tips to avoid plagiarism. They also have really great resources for specific types of writing. So like having an argument be part of your writing, they've got tips for that. They have some really great ideas for how to organize your project. Thesis statements is also covered, outlines. This specific resource I have here is reverse outlining. And so this is a way that you can look back at your project to make sure that your argument is clear and that you cover all of those main points that you need to. And they also have some great resources for proofreading. So how to begin proofreading, some tips. So again, know what you need to look for. That's a great place those evals can come in, is look at all those specific things you need to cover and have that with you while you proofread your project. And they also have some common errors that can come up, steps to revise your paper, and a lot of awesome resources. So this is, again, a really good place to just kind of poke around and look for resources for whatever issue you have with your paper or whatever steps you want to take to kind of revise and work on your project. This can be a really great place to check out. And so that is what we have for you guys tonight. So thank you again for joining us. This is our last office hour, so we won't have any more of these YouTube lives, but we are always available for any resources that you need, any questions. Your teachers are also, I assume, always ready to help you work on your projects. So definitely reach out to them if you need any help as well. And make sure to check out our website, our YouTube, National History Day, all of those different resources mentioned. And this video will be on the YouTube so that you can look back to find any of the resources that were mentioned tonight. So that is what we've got. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you guys all have an awesome Friday.